So we'll just be beginning in a few minutes, and we should get underway. All right, this is RN50. Welcome back to everyone. Hopefully, you were able to take a breather and enjoy last week's holiday. That was actually quite unplanned. I had some technical issues, and so I decided to call it a holiday. So, recall from the last few weeks that we talked about, at least in the last class that we had, we talked about SQL. Could someone tell me what SQL is, or as some articles call it, SQL? What It's a programming language, but what is it used for?
Yes, it is used in the database
Yeah,
to
so
sort
it's
out.
used to interact with databases. Yeah, so it's used to interact with databases to create tables. What is a database? Quick question. What exactly is a database? What is it used for? Even if you've not attended last lecture, and just even if you don't know programming, what exactly is a database? And what is it used for?
Yeah, it is used to store maybe some data, credentials.
Right. So it used to store data, right? And it's used to store and access data more efficiently. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, we had CSVs, comma separated values. I showed you an example of those, and those were inefficient because when it got to a huge amount of data, a program would perform linear search over that, and that would be very slow. And so databases allowed you to kind of create tables and so separate your data a little more. All right. So today we're going to be talking about a few different topics. The first of which is going to be importing and exporting. I'm going to go over that again, and then we're going to talk about navigation, and lastly we're going to touch up on fetching or data. All right. So if you remember from last lecture, I talked about we're going to be starting to write for the remainder of the course, we're going to be writing, we're going to be focusing on one application. And so this is called RN articles. And so if I open up, so I already have created this and you can see the directory structure. So if I open up app.js, you can see that we've got, our usual import React from React, import view, comma text, comma button from React Native. And then we've got this saying import login from /screens/login. So if I go back here, if I say cd screen, voila, screens actually does exist. So there is a directory called screens, and it's actually a convention whenever you're developing a React Native application. It's a convention to separate all your different screens or components into a directory called screens, and each component has file. So what is this notion looked at between what is this notion of importing and exporting? Well, um, every component or every file usually exports some data or some component, or to put it even more simply, it exports some block of UI. And another file can actually import it. So exporting it basically means that it makes our directory, we have actually some React code written in a file probably called react.js, and we're importing something called React from that. And then you can see this, that we're saying objects like structure import view comma text from React. So we have a default login from /screen/login. What does that mean? Can someone try to explain what line would mean? Import in there, actually go there, and you can see there's a file here called login.js. Right? You log in, and there's another point talk about what does this notion of exporting mean? Can someone try to guess what exactly the name of a function or a class? We talked about classes and functions before. So what happens if you can see this line that says export login or export function render login? What exactly would that keyword export mean, and why am I putting it there? So the way this works is any other, if I remove this export, it would throw an error if I try to access render log. Now, if you look down, I'm gonna scroll this down a bit. You can see export default class there. So I could say in one of my files something like from Sorry for that. It just dropped. All right, so 1 second. All right, so I was talking about exports and export defaults. So I said that in the login.js file, I'm saying export function render login, and I'm also saying export default class login. So what's the difference between export and export default? Would someone like to try and explain that? So I'll give you a hint. I have written in one of my lines, import render login from dot slash screen slash login. And in the next line, I've written just import from dot slash screen slash login. So what would happen if I said import from dot slash screen slash login, where I don't specify what I want from that file? Would someone try to guess?
Maybe we will get everything that is in login screen.
Actually, no. So if you see, there's this, I'll give you another hint. I have one class definition in this login.js that says export default class login, and I have a function that says export function render login. Now, would you be able to explain what happens when I just import from dot slash screen slash login? So since I said export default, what it's going to do is it's going to say, okay, this person's not specified what I want to import. All right, I'm just going to I'm just going to export the default that this guy specified, and that's login, right? So it's going to export only that login component, right? So any questions about importing and exporting? Anything at all? Very simple notion. It's basically just pulling code from other files. All right, let's move to navigation now. So I'm going to close this. And navigation is actually a very important cog in terms of mobile apps, right? You always see, when you click a button, you will go to a different screen or something like that. So, how do you do navigation in the web? Can someone try to explain to me how do you do navigation in just plain HTML? What do you use?
Anchor tag.
Good job. So you use like an anchor tag. You would probably write something like um, just a code snippet. So in an anchor tag, the href, we could probably either write something like https:// www.google.com, and we could just say go to Google, not Google, Google. You close it. And this, if you click on this, it would go to Google, and I could even say, assuming this file exists, google.html, open Google, right? And both of these would, direct you to certain thing. The first one would direct you to the Google's website, or the second one would actually direct you to um, another page. And you could even say something like, this code is not necessary. I'm just showing you. I could say something like found form, submit the login form, right? And this would take you to a certain part of the page. And what happens when you click that back button on the browser? Could someone tell me? I'm going to clear this code. So you can think of every time a user presses something, you can think of each browser to have something called a stack, right? So say I'm going to open up a project that I actually am working on um, separately, which is in HTML and certain things. But so it's Vidya Drishti. And if I open this, it's going to open. Oh, this is lagging. All right, I think it should do it. All right. So you can see this page. Now I'm at the home page. If you look at the URL bar, it's just that. Now, say if I want to go to the contact page, I can just hit enter on the contact link, and that's about it. Now, if I click the back button, so basically what happens is I'm currently at the home screen, right? So if I were to click on one of these links, say contact, it would so it the first thing on say the browser having like a virtual stack, okay, the first thing there would be home, and as soon as I click on contact, the browser would say, hey, add contact to the stack. And now I click the back button, it would say, okay, this person clicked the back button, don't remove contact from the stack, but actually just move back in that stack. All right. And if I click the forward, it would go back to that item. So it basically preserves the state, right? Preserves the state of that screen. So is this possible in mobile apps? Can someone try to say, is this possible in mobile apps? Linking to different areas, just as a user, if you were just someone using a mobile app, is it possible?
Yes.
Yeah, it's possible. But what is the difference between doing this on a web interface and doing it in a mobile app? I'm not talking about those hybrid mobile apps or anything that uses a web view. I'm actually talking about native mobile apps. Things that are written in not necessarily React Native, but it could even be in Java or Objective C or Swift. Uh, what is different? What is the common thing that you see? So you won't see links, right? You won't see things like that, the links shown there. You will either see like buttons to go to different areas, or you would see something that's becoming much more popular, especially with touch screens, tab navigators. Like tab, you'd see like a tab bar at the bottom, and you can quickly switch between screens, right? So the most basic navigation is actually done in. I've written this code already. Oh, I'm in the wrong directory. So if you look at this app.js, what would you think in React Native? How would you? Okay, so say I wrote a class that just says home. I'll just quickly write this, or a function home. And if I said return view text home, I may have made a few typos, but no, fine. And I have another. Oh, here's a typo. Let's export another function. Call this login. And if I just return a text that says login, right? So now say I have, oh, all right. So say I have a button here, okay? The title will be log in, accessibility label will be log in, and on press. Now, could someone try to tell me, so we're gonna do an anonymous function, so no arguments, and it will return. What will this function return? What should happen when this button is pressed? Where should it go? Um, so just to reiterate, I have this um, screen that's called home, and in that I've got this button that says login, and there's another screen that's called login. So what should happen if the user taps on this button or clicks on it? Would someone like to try to guess?
Yeah, he might go to the login screen.
Yeah, so it might just go to the login screen. And since the login screen is a component, I can just say login, just like that, right? using the angle brackets. And that should work, right? That should, in theory, work. Now, I've written a sample of this in app.js. It's basically the same thing. And what if we start this? What if we start the server and actually view what happens in a web browser? So basically, it's in app.js, there's a home screen, and whoops, I'm just gonna close the window there. There's a button that says login, and we're importing that login screen. And you saw the login screen. It has a button that just, well, lets you log in, and that's it. Okay. So what should happen if I click on this login button? What, in theory, what would happen if I click on the login button? Would anyone like to try to guess? What would happen if I click on the login button? So it should, in theory, just return the login component, right? And it should show that on the screen. Let's see. So I'm opening this in a web browser, and this will probably again take, oh boy, that is Latin Valley. So in theory, this should open the web browser. And so in theory, it should allow me to click on this login button, and well, it should show the login screen, right? Uh, do you guys think that's going to work? Do you think this login screen is going to work? So I suppose compiling a thing. Oh, and it stopped compiling. All right, it's compiling now, and let's see what the output will be. Uh, all right, I think yeah, I think it's done. All right, so you can see welcome to RN articles, and you can see this login button. What will happen again if I click on this login button? It should take us to the login screen, right? I've been pressing enter for an age now, but it hasn't taken me to the login screen. Wonder why. Could someone try to tell me why hasn't it taken me to the login screen? Just, a simple guess.
Yes, as per the React Native, we need to have that this one, right? Input can, we need to define it on click.
Right. We have that definition actually in a file. We have it separately, and we have imported that.
Okay.
So the reason why it's not doing it is because React Native doesn't support this. The guys over at Facebook said, okay, this is going to be a terrible performance hit, right? If it has to do this every time. Just think about it. I'm just going to navigate to that directory where got it. All right. Just think about it. It's going to have a terrible performance hit, right? Every time you click that button, it has to load that screen and it has to do all that over again, right? So what could be a simpler way? Well, if I were to open up, oh, didn't want to do that. Whoops. All right. All right. So, oh, like that. Oh, why is it opening? Okay, sorry. This is, let me close that. All right. So if I were to open up app.js, so we've got this. Okay, so I'm going to clear all this code. Okay, and we're going to start from track. So we're importing React from React, and we're going to import view, text, button from React dash native. We're also going to import login from dot slash screen slash login. And say we export default class, let's call this app extends react dot component. Well, we could do this, okay? So we could just say state, and in the state we could store, something that says show log in, oops, show login, and I'm going to set this to false for now. All right. Now, if I say render, and here I could just say something like, we're not going to style this for now. So view text home view, not view text. And now I can say something like button on press equals this dot show log in form, title equals show log in, accessibility label. You guys know the deal here. Show login, and I can just close the view, close that. All right. What is the logic, do you think? What should be the logic? Or actually, I'll modify this a little more. I can just say if this dot state dot show log in equals true, I can just say return login, which is that component, right? And I can just say else, and I have to close another brace. All right, so I've given you the hint. We stored this in state. What will this show login form function? Show login form. Okay. What will this function do? Would someone like to tell me what would this function do? How will it modify the state so that this login is shown? Did someone try to guess?
Uh, is this a toggle kind of?
Yeah, so we can just say this dot set state. We can say show login, and we can set that to true, right? And when it's true, if you look at the condition, it just says, okay, when it's true, show the login form, right? So let's run this. I'm going to reload. It still doesn't work. Would someone try to tell me why? All right, so the main reason why it doesn't work is, again, React Native doesn't allow this for performance reasons. So what can we do? Well, there's this simple library called um, it's called React Navigation. So I can go to the documentation. And basically what it does is it enables this navigation. So, like we talked about stack navigation in the web, it'll enable that in mobile devices. And it'll also enable the tab navigation. So if I go to the if I go to the React Navigation docs, it tells me some code to write, and you can choose the npm option, but I'm going to use yarn. So the way you install this is just you say you paste the code yarn, and it's going to do this. And what is React Navigation? Basically, what it does is it takes these ideas of the web and it applies them to mobile devices. Okay. So basically, it's the same thing as just clicking on a link and it's navigating you somewhere else, except that in the mobile device, you're actually clicking on a button and it's going to navigate you somewhere else. Okay? So it's doing its thing. Does anyone have any questions on why that doesn't work? Why what we just did doesn't work? Does anyone have any questions on that? I'm going to copy some more code just because it's going to be useful. And so the two navigators that we're going to be looking at are stack navigation and bottom tab navigation. So in fact, the way these work is they actually are components in themselves. And the way you do it is, okay, you say, okay, give me a stack navigator. You define all the screens that that the application has in that stack navigator, and it's going to take care of the rest. So we're going to talk about that. So it's still loading. You can try this. You can probably just say npm install at react-navigation/native. What I'll be also doing is I'm gonna type this in the chat. You can actually try this if you've created this Expo app, and that should do it. All right, so we're done. Now there are a few other things that we have to do. So I'm gonna paste another command in the chat. That's this. Hopefully it's visible. I'm not too sure, but it's basically some extra dependencies that React navigation needs, and it just uses Expo. And so it's just gonna install them for me. So it's all right. So it's doing its thing, and it's almost done. So I would suggest you use. All right, done. So we've got these models, and if you look at our package.json file, we've got React Native Community Mask View, React Navigation, Expo Status Bar, React, React DOM, React. Well, you know this. So we need to install one more because we're going to be talking about the Stack Navigator. And the Stack Navigator basically it works. If you guys have seen certain applications and you say double tap on something or tap on something, you'll see like the screen actually slides in from the side, or slides in from the bottom if you're using Android. And if you tap the back button, it will actually go back to that screen, to the previous screen, right? So each Android phone has a back button, and so it'll navigate back. So we're going to make that stack navigator. And so for that, we need to install one more module, that's yarn add at react dash navigation slash stack. So it's going to install this. It's started installing it, and it's stuck. Oh, no, it's not. All right, done. So anyone has any questions on how we install these modules? You can in fact find them even at the React navigation docs. So if I copy that link, I'm gonna paste that link as well. So you can find all these details in the command in the React navigation docs. All right, so now let's clear out app.js, okay? And let's see how this React navigation works. So say I say import React from, you guys know the deal. Import, I'm gonna import view text button from React Native. And I'm also gonna import a few more. Import navigation container. This will basically allow us to enable that navigation in React Native from at React navigation native. And we also need, so this is a function. create stack navigator, not navigation, navigator from React navigation stack. All right. So the way this works is since JS is what our React Native thing compiles into, we will put our navigation in app.js. And we'll just, usually the convention is to separate the screens. So I can just say function home. And if you're giving a function, you always pass in this navigation argument. We'll see what that is in a second. I can say return view text home text view close the function. Now I can just say something like const stack equals create stack navigator. What does this do? Well, this creates a component. So stack is now a component. And I can just say export default function app. And I can say return. And here, instead of using anything else, I can just say navigation container, just like I would say anything like a text or something. And this is where our whole logic goes. And I can just say stack.navigator, which will basically invoke the stack navigator. And I can just, so the way this works is you specify screens to it. So the stack has a property called screen. So I can say stack.screen. We have to specify a name for the screen. So the name will be, let's say, home. And we have to specify a component, which will be, what did I name it? Home, right? And close stack dot not screen navigator and close navigation container. All right, so let's save that. Oh, whoops. Okay, I'm just going to go and run. Suppose start here. I accidentally forgot to do that, or I accidentally closed the project. And if I open this in a web browser, oh, so does anyone have any questions on what just happened? I know it was a huge mouthful. Whoa, this is taking a lot of time. All right, I think it should be done. It's still taking. Oh, okay. It's doing its thing. All right, I think. Yep. Oh, all right. Oh, okay. My bad. So I have to. So just surround this with braces. Now if I save, and you can see, it just shows home as the title and the text is home. And if I change the text, and you can see it shows home screen and below that the title home. All right, so let's make another thing called, let's say, function details. And this will actually not even details. Let's say articles. Uh, and we're going to give it the navigation prop. And I can just say return a view and a text that says view articles. Oops, I think I may have. And if I now add another screen to this stack, uh, which will be named articles, and the component will be articles. All right, so we have another component, but how do we navigate from this home screen to this article screen? Well, that's going to be a cliffhanger. I will leave you for a break for a few minutes, and when we come back, we're going to see how we navigate. All right, see you in a few minutes. Also, if any one of you has any questions, feel free to just ask it right away. All right, so we're going to be continuing, and we'll see how we navigate between screens. Okay, so I'm going to open that up again, and I'm going to just navigate uh, through. So, say we want to navigate from this home screen to the details. So I can just say button on press equals, and I can just say navigation dot navigate details, and I can just say title go to details, or actually it's not details. Whoops, sorry, my bad. Articles. This is also not details. Articles. Whoops, didn't want to do that. And I can just close that. All right. So if I save this, and I'm gonna open up a separate command window, and if I run export start, it's gonna take a second here. Would someone try to guess what's gonna happen if I press on that button? Oh, that was fast. I think the service loaded. So what would happen if I click on that button that says go to articles? Articles is the title of another screen, all right? What's gonna happen? Will it navigate or will it not? I think it's done compiling. Yes, it is. So if I click on the articles, and there we go. You can see view articles and you can see the back button to go back to the home screen. And that's how it works. All right, so we know that's a stack navigator and we can play around with that. But what about a tab navigator? All right, so I can install another module here that says, uh, one second, yarn add at react applications slash, what is it called? Sorry, uh, I need to refer to the docs. So if you look at the docs for tab navigation, one second. All right. So if you look at the docs, you can see there's this. So it's bottom tabs, and it'll install. One second. So it's going to install this tab navigator. All right, it's done. So I can just add another thing here, import, create bottom tab navigator, or not navigation, from React navigation slash bottom tabs. All right, and I can save that. Hopefully that is doesn't blow up. No, it doesn't. Now I can just I can change that word, this tab, tab, and I can just say create bottom tab navigator, and I can just say tab.navigator here, and tab.screen, tab.screen, tab. I changed all that. Oh, you want to add an S there. I can go to articles. I can even go back. Huh, why is that acting like a stack navigator? Oh, all right, I think I know why. If I just run my server again. All right, so sometimes the server just glitches. Uh, Hopefully it will get back up. It should get back up. So let's open this in a web browser. Come on. I think it's opening. Oh, oops. 1 second. All right, sorry for that, guys. My net just died. All right, so I was talking about this. So there's an error. So we've got a thing that's erroring. So if you look at the docs again, I'll be doing that every 5 seconds. So if I look back at the docs, sorry for my net, guys. Oops. All right, so if you look at the doc here, the way you do this is, I think I may have done something wrong. Oops. All right, I think I was right. Oh, okay. Oh, this just has to be that. All right. So my bad. Um, I I noticed what my mistake was, and oh, okay. There's another error. Sorry for that. This guys, there's an extra error. Really, I did provide. Oh, okay, guys. Small bug. Okay, here's your chance. Who can spot the bug? Oh, there we go. And you can see it's showing it's a tab navigator. So if I hit, you can see the articles, and I can go home. I can even go to articles. That's the tab navigator. All right. Any questions about stack and tab navigators? So it was not a very fun ride, and it's going to take time to get used to the syntax, but with time you should be able to get used to it.
Along with the tab navigator, you said bar navigator, right? Is it something like menu bar or?
No. So basically, what happens is the tab navigator just shows a bottom, like a tab bar at the bottom, and you can just switch between them. So it provides a performance boost. There is actually on Android the navigation drawer, and you can actually use that in React Native. But I personally have never used it, so I'm not sure how it works.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Other questions? All right. So the last thing that we're going to be looking at, which is actually not going to be, this is kind of a more JavaScript thing. So I'm going to close a few things, and I'm going to open up Chrome because that's the browser that I use, and hopes this doesn't. And say I go to my console. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about fetching. So, one second. I'm going to go to the console, just wait there. All right. So, a lot of the times, so whatever we've built so far in terms of that alphabets application has been self-contained. What do I mean by self-contained? Well, the data that is in the application is either generated within the application or taken from the user, right? But a lot of the time, you'd either want to save that data online or access some data that is stored online. Um, so how do you do this? The data we know is stored in a database, right? But what would you use to access this database? We can't use SQL in React Native, not directly. So we'd use something called an API. What is an API? Would anyone like to tell me? What exactly does an API stand for? The acronym.
Application program interface.
Good job. Would you want to explain what that is to everyone else? Arun?
It's kind of library from online. I
Yeah,
mean, online function kind of thing. We
yeah.
can use
So
it.
it's
Uh,
basically a set of tools that a website might give you, or certain things like that, uh, or a set of instructions that let you access either access certain parts of data or do certain functions or do certain carry out certain tasks using that data that's provided online. So one of the APIs is actually an example of API is React Native. Expo itself is an API. And would someone like to give me another API example? We've been using it throughout this class. It's our main programming language. What is that API. We've been using it. It's what we write React Native in, or it's what makes up React Native, basically. So JavaScript is actually an API, or ECMAScript really is an API, right? So you can design your own APIs and you can experiment with them. I actually have one because as I said, I have a project called Vidadrishti and I have an API for that. So I have an API that has a few functions. One of them is to get articles. All right. So let's see. Let's play around with this now. JavaScript by default doesn't allow you to make get requests, and we talked about get and post requests in a previous lecture. But JavaScript doesn't allow you to make these get requests, but it has been that the feature has been implemented in most browsers and phones, so you can actually do it. So say I want to get. So I have this link. If I open this link up here in the tab, and if I open pitadishti.rokuapp.com/API/get/articles, and hopefully my API isn't broken. And you can see this is JSON, right? Or JSON. Whoops, one second, I'm just scrolling through all this. So this is just JSON, right? JavaScript object notation, or these are basically just JavaScript objects, right? And you can go to this URL as well. Now, say I want to actually access this via JavaScript. I could just do fetch https://vidya.herokuapp.com/API/get/article. Now I'm gonna assign this to a variable called response, and if I hit enter, and this what this returns is a promise. All right. So what a promise is, um, it basically contains information about that request that we just made. So I could just say then I just write dot then response dot JSON. And I could just say then dot then response equals console dot log response. Oh, oops, okay. If I just say response, okay, let's try that again. Okay. Const response equals fetch. There's another URL that's https://random user.me/API/question results equals 5,000, which will basically get 5,000 random users. And if I console.log this, respond, okay, I'm just gonna copy this side and plot. So still thinking there's something wrong with my net. That's why it's not fetching. All right, you can see this. It's shown all this text, right? This is the API. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to say dot then response.json and dot then response equals greater than console.log response. And that should print it out. So any questions on fetch and how this fetch mechanism works? All right, so in next class, we're actually going to be talking about fetch in more detail, and we're actually going to be fetching articles and showing them in our application. So any questions about what we discussed today, as well as anything on previous lectures? I'll keep it open for a few minutes for questions. I'm gonna stop my share. All right, so yeah, yeah, Arun?
Hi, Pranay.
Yeah, hi.
Uh,
You had a
oh,
question?
yeah. Is it
Yeah.
possible to make offline data storage with React Native, like a contacts app, something like that? The SQL
Very
business.
good. Yeah, very good question. So there's actually, and we're going to be talking about this soon, very soon, in fact. There's actually a library called Expo File System, which will let you access the file system on a certain device, and it'll let you store some data to the file system. So say you want to store contacts to the file system, it'll let you actually store these contacts to the file system in terms of keys and values. So React Native does have that ability, though it's kind of quirky syntax, but it does let you store. In fact, this is even useful to basically, just like you have cookies in the web, you may not want to do the same logic with something similar where you want to say, okay, this person's already logged into my app. I don't want them to log in every time they open the app, right? So you can just store a small, like a hand stamp on their device saying, okay, you've logged in, right? Um, so basically, that's basically it. So there is a file system library, and that's pretty flexible. And there are many other libraries created by others as well. Good question. Other questions? In fact, there's one more thing that just came to my mind. To store data, you actually, if you want to do it in terms of an SQLite database, though we're not going to be covering that in this course. If you want to store data in an SQLite database, Expo actually has um, a component that will actually let you interact with SQLite databases and actually store them on the device itself. So you in a file called, say whatever.db, you can store that on the device. So that's useful too.
And what is the difference between Expo CLI and React Native CLI? When to use which option?
Very good question. Yes, very good question. That's actually a wonderful question. And just for those who don't know what React Native CLI is, it's just like we have Expo. React Native has its own, interface where we can, create apps and things like that. And the difference is that the React Native CLI, it produces the builds that it produces are actually much more lightweight. So Expo may produce an app that's around 30 MB, whereas the React Native CLI will produce it in around 11 MB. The second difference is Expo actually takes care of a lot of the fundamentals of setting up the project. So you may have seen something called node modules in your Expo, your React Native directory. It sets up all that for you. The JSON, the configuration that's stored in the JSON files like package.json and app.json, Expo takes care of that. Expo also takes care of building. So when you actually build something in the React Native CLI, you actually need to have something called a key store, which will basically, it signs your build. So it says, okay, this build is safe, right? Expo can generate key stores for you. And a lot of the configuration that's required to build A lot of the platform specific configuration, like platform specific code that's written in Java or XML for Android, and things like that, is done by Expo. So Expo makes it much easier. Whereas React Native CLI, while it's more bare bones, it actually gives you way better performance. So I will be showing off React Native CLI a little bit in the end of the course. That's a very good question. Other questions? All right. In fact, there's another CLI if you want to try it. It's even more bare bones, or even more. It does even more for you than Expo. It's actually called Create React Native App. I wouldn't recommend it because it's kind of clunky, but you could always just try it out, see how it works. All right. You could just do. I'll type the command in the chat. So you could just do npm 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 install dash g's create react native app. All right, so now let's use that.
Only the host can share in this meeting. Okay.
So yeah. All right, so next lecture we're going to talk about, as I said, more on fetch. We're going to talk about post requests, and we're going to talk about how to display these articles in our application. All right. So until then, next lecture will actually be on Christmas. So I am going to be keeping a lecture on Christmas. And if you guys, for whatever reason, do not want it or won't be able to attend, you can always tell me and I can probably postpone it. So until then, I will see you next week. And yeah, if you do have any questions in the middle, you can always just contact me.